The Zathary interrogator's tendrils twitched as he adjusted the lighting in the observation room. He didn't like children, especially not human ones. They were too quiet, too still, like they were listening for something you didn't say. 3 of them sat in the steel-plated chamber beyond the glass, dwarfed by the cold walls and the looming shadow of the overhead scanner. No restraints, no visible injuries. Just 3 captured human cubs. Sitting like this was a school timeout, and not an Imperial holding facility on a Class 3 war moon. The oldest, a girl maybe 11, leaned back in her chair, spinning a Rubik's Cube with one hand while humming a melody the translator failed to decode. The youngest, a boy no older than 8, was cross-legged on the floor, sketching something on the wall with his finger. The pattern was complex, fractal. He worked fast. The third child, silent and still, stared up at the camera in the ceiling with a look that made the interrogator uneasy. Warden Zeloth tapped the console with an impatient claw. "Why haven't they spoken yet?" "They're frightened," said the junior officer. He sounded unsure. Zeloth turned. "Frightened beings cry. Beg. These are not frightened. These are watching." He hated that word. Watching. Humans were always watching, until they weren't. Until they were suddenly doing. The airlock hissed open. The interrogator stepped into the chamber with a calm, deliberate gait, dragging a reinforced chair behind him. The scrape echoed unnaturally, drawing attention. The children didn't flinch. The girl looked up from her cube and smiled. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I like your robe. Looks like a banana peel." The interrogator blinked. "You are children. Do you understand your situation?" The boy on the floor raised a hand without looking up. Captured. Detained. Hostile environment. No parental units. Surveillance grid active. Triangulation failed due to jamming burst, but we're working on it. The interrogator stared. "You are working on it?" The third child, the quiet one, finally spoke. "You think you captured us. But you didn't. You just made a mistake. A very loud one." Before the interrogator could reply, the lights flickered. Just once. A subtle ripple through the grid. But it was enough to make Zeloth lean forward from the control deck. "They're playing us," he muttered. "Even here." The chamber door opened again, this time with a practiced whoosh, like the room itself inhaled. A human walked in. Zeloth narrowed his eyes. The human wasn't armored, wasn't armed. Wore no insignia. Just a dark gray suit, polished boots, and a weathered leather briefcase in one hand. He looked like someone who belonged at a wedding or a funeral. The children looked up in unison. Their eyes brightened. "Uncle M," the girl said. "Captain Emerson Watson," the interrogator corrected, eyeing the newcomer. Emerson smiled, slow and easy. "Uncle M is fine. The kids are just being polite. Unlike your hospitality." Zeloth blinked rapidly, then adjusted the mic. "Human diplomat. Identify your function and purpose." Emerson placed the briefcase on the table, then sat, completely uninvited. "Function? I suppose I'd call myself a translator. Not of language. Of intentions." He leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, sipping from a small thermos he'd produced from his jacket. "Tea," he offered the interrogator. "No. Shame. Gingerbread and mint. Good for nausea. And regret." The interrogator narrowed his eyes. "These children are classified detainees under intergalactic clause." "Clause 49B," Emerson interrupted gently. Yes, I know. Though funny thing about that clause, it only applies if the detainees are non-military. Which, unfortunately for you, they're not." There was a pause. The interrogator squinted. "You're claiming they are combatants?" "Oh no," Emerson said with a smile. "I'm not claiming anything. I'm here to offer you a chance to fix what you've already broken." Zeloth, watching from the console, gritted his teeth. This human thinks he's negotiating. Inside the chamber, the boy finally stood. He wiped his fingers on his shirt and looked directly at the interrogator. "Your internal AI has 17 vulnerabilities. We're already inside your emergency command net." The interrogator scoffed. "Lies. Childish bravado." The boy stepped forward. Ask your warden to check the integrity of your propulsion matrix. Better hurry before your orbit degrades. In the control room, alarms triggered. The orbital anchor had just destabilized by 2%. Zeloth cursed. The interrogator turned back to Emerson. What are you? Me? Just a handler, Emerson said. They're the smart ones. He opened his briefcase. Inside, only one item. A round, red device with a single glowing button. This, Emerson said, tapping the device gently, is connected to a very old system. We call it Protocol Redline. You don't know what it does. And trust me, you don't want to find out. The interrogator stepped back. Is that a threat? Emerson blinked, as if offended. No, sir. It's a courtesy. There was a sharp hiss of static. Then the ship's AI spoke in clipped, mechanical panic. Unauthorized access detected. Security nodes failing. Power grid compromised. The Rubik's Cube made a final click in the girl's hand. Solved. I like puzzles, she said. Zeloth slammed his claw on the console. Send in shock troopers. Lock down all data conduits. Another voice chimed in from deeper within the command bridge. Sir, Earth fleets just dropped out of warp. Inside our territorial zone. The warden stared at the holographic map. Dozens of human ships appeared silently across multiple systems. None firing, none transmitting. Just there. Emerson stood slowly. You made a choice when you took our children. He walked over to the children and tapped the boy on the shoulder. You ready, kiddo? The boy nodded. They were arrogant, easy to bait. The interrogator flinched. You let yourselves be captured? Course we did, the girl said, standing up. Uncle M said they wouldn't be able to help themselves. Curiosity's a dangerous habit, Emerson added, especially when aimed at humans. He started walking toward the door with the children in tow. Wait, the interrogator barked. You can't just leave. This is an act of war. Emerson turned back, eyes still kind, voice still soft. No, this was a lesson. War starts if you decide not to listen. The lights in the chamber dimmed again, now flickering rhythmically. In the distance, the hum of thousands of synchronized human warships vibrated through the stars like the first note of a funeral hymn. And Emerson? He kept smiling. The boy glanced back at the interrogator, then whispered, You thought we were the weakness. The girl added, But we're just the opening move. As they stepped through the threshold, the red button blinked once. Then again. Back in the observation room, Zeloth sank into his chair, staring at the static-laced feed. He'd seen many things in his career, but never children who walked into a prison and walked out with the keys. Captain Emerson Watson did not walk fast. He never had. Fast movements made people nervous, made them think you were hiding something. But walk slow, walk like every step was part of a plan you'd already executed. And the galaxy opened its ears. He strolled through the hangar bay of the Zathari dreadnought like it was an airport lounge, children in tow. No alarms were blaring. Not yet. That was the genius of Protocol Redline. It worked in silence. You didn't hear the first domino fall. You only heard the last one hit the floor. The girl, Ida, was humming again, this time something distinctly human. Emerson caught the tune. It was from an old American cartoon. Something cheerful. Ridiculously ironic. The boy Milo paused at a terminal, glanced at it, and whispered, It's still open. Only for another minute, Emerson replied. Use it wisely. The third child, Zane, the quiet one, hadn't spoken since leaving the interrogation chamber. He didn't need to. His silence said more than most adult speeches. The hangar crew gave them all a wide berth. None of the Zathari guards moved. They stood like statues, expressions unreadable under their chitinous facial plates. They'd received no orders to interfere. Not yet. That hesitation was everything. Emerson leaned toward Zane. They're trying to figure out who gives the order to stop me. Zane nodded once. They'll realize soon. The answer is no one. Milo grinned as he finished inputting a command into the terminal using 3 fingers and a knuckle. There. Now their backup relays are pointing at each other. If they try to restore the system, they'll loop themselves into a digital Ouroboros. Ida rolled her eyes. You and your metaphors. Better than your singing, Milo muttered. That was a classic theme song. Sure, for toddlers. Guys, Emerson cut in with that velvet calm voice. Save the bickering for when we're home. Assuming you still want dessert privileges. They fell quiet. Only now did some of the Zathari around them begin to notice that something was very wrong. In the command tower above, Warden Zelotha's mandibles clicked furiously. Why are they still walking? Stop them. Detain the human and recover the specimens. A nervous aide stammered. Sir, we don't have control of the hangar systems. The override nodes are responding in binary. Zeloth froze. Binary? As in Earth's root code. It's inside our infrastructure. Sir, they've been inside our systems for hours. Zeloth turned slowly to his tactical advisor. How? A grainy still image from the interrogation room appeared on the screen. The Rubik's Cube in Aida's hands. It wasn't a toy, the tech whispered. It was a pulse beacon. She was mapping the magnetic harmonics of the ship. And the boy? The aide swallowed. He used chalk from his boots to draw a schematic on the wall. It wasn't art, it was a diagnostic. Zelotha's claws dug into the console. They were never prisoners, he whispered. They were embedded agents. The room went silent. Meanwhile, Emerson and the kids reached Docking Bay 3, where a small Earth shuttle waited, unauthorized, unscrambled, and absolutely invisible to the Zathari's own port registry. Zane flicked his fingers, and the hatch opened with a friendly hiss. Milo looked around, then back at Emerson. You think they've figured it out? Oh, they're starting to, Emerson said. But by the time realization hits panic speed, we'll be 10 systems out, and they'll still be checking who had clearance. Inside the command room, Zeloth slammed a claw onto the communicator. Prepare the grav anchors. Don't let that shuttle escape. A flicker. A hiss. A single line of text appeared on the main command display. Request denied. Earth AI Control Node number 3-inch. Below it, the insignia of Earth's Diplomatic Security Force. The blood drained from Zelotha's face. What little blood he had. The realization hit like cold metal to the gut. They hadn't just captured children. They'd invited a virus aboard and fed it everything. Back in the shuttle, Ida strapped in while humming again. Milo powered up the NAV systems and entered a destination so classified. Even Emerson didn't look. Zane finally broke his silence. We shouldn't have let them touch us. Emerson glanced at him. No, we shouldn't have. There was an edge to the boy's voice. Not anger, something more dangerous. Resolve. Zane had watched the guard sneer, had watched them laugh when Milo was pushed to the floor. He'd memorized their faces, and he would remember. Aida's voice cut through the tension. So what now? Debrief? Ice cream? Not yet, Emerson said. We have one last errand. The children turned to him. Emerson opened his wrist pad. A new message blinked on screen. A reply from Earth's High Command. He read it, then smiled. Change of plans. They just upgraded this from rescue to demonstration. Milo raised a brow. You mean? Emerson nodded. We're staying a little longer, just to make a point. The ship banked hard as it turned back toward the dreadnought. The kids exchanged a look, but none of them hesitated. In the war room aboard the dreadnought, Zeloth was still pacing when the alarm klaxons screamed again. Unidentified craft has re-entered our airspace. The aide gasped. It's the human shuttle. They're coming back. The dreadnought's entire bridge crew stared at the screen. It was madness. No enemy would return once escaped. Unless they weren't afraid. The shuttle hovered just outside the main viewport. Then, without firing a single weapon, it did something worse. It transmitted a message. No encryption. No hidden code. Just a clear, human voice. Emerson Watson, live and smiling. Hello again, friends. I know you're wondering why we didn't just leave. The answer's simple. You still don't get it. On screen, Emerson stepped aside. The camera panned slightly to show the children sitting calmly, staring directly at the Zathari command staff. These aren't ordinary kids. They're trained, disciplined, educated in more languages than most of your diplomats. Milo gave a small wave. They volunteered for this mission. Earth doesn't send victims. We send choices. And they chose to walk into your jaws. Emerson leaned forward. Now I want you to think about something. If these 3 children could bring your entire security grid to its knees in 8 hours, what do you think happens if Earth stops holding back? The line cut, and in its place, every screen aboard the dreadnought displayed a single phrase. Congratulations. You just signed your death warrant. Then the power went out. A blackout unlike anything the ship had experienced. Not just lights, control systems, life support, communications. In the silence, only the faint glow of backup emergency lighting remained. Warden Zeloth stared at the message, still faintly burning, across the main holoscreen. He remembered how the girl smiled, how the boy calculated, how the silent one didn't blink. Then it hit him. They hadn't been prisoners. They'd been predators. Bait wrapped in childhood, armed not with weapons, but purpose. Above the ship, orbiting Earth dreadnoughts powered up, not weapons, but signal relays. A galactic message began transmitting outward to every known channel, coded and translated for every major species. A statement from Earth's Central Diplomatic Office. Any civilization found harboring or harming human children, regardless of political context, will be considered in active violation of Article 7 of the Earth Accord. Retaliation will not be negotiated. No further warnings will be issued. Emerson sat calmly aboard the shuttle, eyes focused on the drifting dreadnought below. Zane was watching a star chart on a console nearby. His voice was soft. Some of them will try again. Yes, Emerson replied, but fewer than before. Do we go home now? Ida asked. Emerson didn't answer right away. His fingers were dancing over the console, pulling up data, footage, and tactical results. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than usual. We didn't come here just to get you out. We came here to remind the galaxy of something they forgot. He looked at them. When we say don't touch our children, we mean it. Zane gave a small nod. Milo smiled with teeth. Ida leaned her head back against the seat and whispered, "So what now?" Emerson looked out at the stars and said, without humor, "Now we wait and see who blinks next." And then, almost casually, he added, "But I'd start prepping for Phase 2, because they just proved they're not smart enough to learn the easy way." Back in the Zathari war room, the emergency lights blinked once, twice, then shut off. Only darkness remained. Milo stared at the holoscreen, his hands hovering over the console like a pianist before a concert. Outside, the Zathari dreadnought hung in orbit like a gutted leviathan. Systems failing, comms jammed, lights dim. The only thing holding it together was habit. Inside their shuttle, the silence was deceptive. The kind of stillness that existed in the moment after drawing a sword, but before it reached its target. Phase 2. Ida asked from the co-pilot seat, eyebrows arched. Emerson didn't answer right away. He stood with his back to them, arms crossed behind his tailored suit, watching the dark void like it was a chessboard. His reflection gleamed on the glass, calm and focused, the way oceans look before storms arrive. "Yes," he said. "Phase 2. And no, it's not about firepower." Milo scoffed. "We hacked a warship with 3 kids, a cube, and a shoelace. What's more impressive than that?" Convincing the entire galaxy it was their idea, Zane murmured from the rear bench. He was building something again, spools of filament from the emergency medkit, now twisted into a new pattern. Every motion deliberate, controlled. Emerson half smiled. "He gets it." Aida's eyes narrowed. "So what's the real mission?" "Operation False Harvest." The phrase hung in the air like thunder waiting to break. Milo sat up straighter. "You mean the one in the restricted archive?" "I thought that was just a theory," Ida added. Emerson turned. "It was. Until the Zathari confirmed they're still stupid enough to underestimate humans." He walked to the center console, tapped a few keys, and the screen shifted from the dreadnought to a star map. 30 blinking dots illuminated the void, Zathari forward stations, intelligence hubs, refueling depots. They've spent decades building outposts in every sector, he said, monitoring species, projecting dominance. And all of it's coordinated through a deep void comms net they believe is undetectable. Milo raised an eyebrow. Is this where we pretend they were right? No, Emerson said. This is where we make them wish they were. He tapped again. One of the blinking dots flared red. The net has a master relay, he continued. A command satellite in a dead sector outside of charted trade lanes. They built it on a moonless rock surrounded by cosmic radiation, betting no one would ever think to look. Ida leaned forward. And we found it. We didn't just find it, Zane said, still braiding cables. We've already been inside it. Emerson smiled. 3 months ago, another human prisoner was captured on their Eastern Rim colony. Same story, injured scout, minor intel leak, transport to Central Authority. It wasn't a leak. It was a seed. He brought up a diagram, an internal schematic of the Zathari relay, overlaid with human code. Elegant, quiet, absolute. She uploaded a ghost protocol. Emerson continued. It crawled through their network like mold. And now, he tapped again. The dreadnought's lights blinked in rhythm with the pulse from the relay station. Each pulse was slow, deliberate. They think their systems are failing because of the kids, he said. But they've been failing since that relay was compromised. The kids were the distraction. The show. Milo exhaled, impressed. So they never captured us. No, Emerson replied. They harvested what we gave them. A false crop. One that's about to ruin their entire ecosystem. Ida whistled. That's dark, even for Earth. Emerson shrugged. They crossed the line. This is the reminder. The console chimed. Zane stood and walked toward the screen. Message incoming. From who? Emerson asked. Zane didn't answer immediately. He stared at the screen, then slowly turned. It's not from our side. Emerson's jaw tightened. Put it through. External audio only. A click. A buzz. Then the rasping voice of a Zathari commander, filtered through translation. To the human vessel. This is Admiral Kravax of the Zathari Home Fleet. You have interfered in internal operations. You have violated territorial boundaries and deployed unprovoked cyber aggression. These actions are hostile. You will surrender the operative known as Emerson Watson and the juvenile agents for tribunal interrogation. Milo snorted. He's got a sense of humor. The message continued. If you do not comply, our fleets will initiate orbital erasure of your launch point and declare Earth a hostile predator species. This is your final opportunity for diplomatic resolution. Then silence. Emerson took a slow sip from his thermos, then placed it down with care. Zane, send the file. Zane didn't ask which one. He just moved. A second later, the system confirmed transmission. File sent. Harvested truth _001. What did you just give them? Ida asked. The truth, Emerson replied. A full breakdown of every vulnerability in their relay net. How we accessed it. When. Where. Who. We're not hiding it. Milo frowned. Why tell them? Because it's not about proving how smart we are, Emerson said. It's about showing how stupid they were. Zane nodded. We let them hold the match. We just poured gasoline around their feet. Across the stars, Zathari stations began to blink off the star map one by one. Not explosions. Deactivations. Like switches being flicked. Ida watched the cascade unfold. Is this what war looks like now? No, Emerson said. This is what a lesson looks like. If we wanted war, they'd already be ash. In the Zathari Command Council, panic rippled. Not from explosions, but from silence. Stations reporting nothing. Systems failing without reason. Defense nets collapsing inward. Dozens of senior commanders now realized they had no control over the very backbone of their empire. And worse, the humans weren't even there. They'd already done it. Far away, Emerson's shuttle hovered silently. He stood before the comms feed and opened a direct channel to the Zathari admiral. Admiral Kravax, he said, I appreciate the generous opportunity for diplomacy, but I'm afraid your window has collapsed. Kravax appeared on screen, eyes burning with restrained fury. You've humiliated our fleets, undermined our command. Do you understand the scope of what you've done? Emerson raised an eyebrow. Of course I do. That's why we did it. Kravax hissed. You used your children as pawns. No, Emerson said calmly. We used them as mirrors. You saw fragility, emotion, weakness, and you moved to exploit it. He leaned closer to the camera. Now you see what we put behind that smile. Kravax roared, cutting the feed. His ship's weapons powered up. Emerson turned to the kids. That's the other reason we came back. Milo grinned. To finish the demonstration? No, Emerson said. To give them one last chance not to be stupid. He raised his hand and tapped the button on the console again. Across space, a ripple of light flared. Earth's fleet stepping out of the shadows. One ship at a time, all positioned around the Zathari border worlds. No shots fired. No threats issued. Just presence. Massive, silent presence. Zane sat back down and exhaled slowly. Do you think they'll stand down? Ida shook her head. They won't. Pride's too loud in their ears. Milo added, but fear's getting louder. Emerson didn't respond. He stared at the map as the final Zathari relay went dark. In its place, a human signal beacon blinked once. Then again. He smiled. This wasn't retaliation, he said. It was reputation control. The children watched as the galaxy reshaped itself without a single missile. Power wasn't in weapons. It was in perception. And Earth had just rewritten theirs. The stars were unnaturally quiet. Not in the way a vacuum silences things, but in the way tension does. When everyone knows something is about to break, but no one wants to be the one to speak first. Emerson Watson stood in the center of the shuttle's command deck, his hand resting lightly on the back of the pilot's chair. The children sat around him, subdued but alert. The playful energy that had once crackled between them was gone now, replaced by a sobering calm. Even Milo had stopped spinning in his seat. Zane's fingers were still. Aida's cube lay unsolved at her feet. They were waiting, not for permission, for judgment. Report, Emerson said without turning. Milo cleared his throat. 17 Zathari relays, offline. 3 secondary command bunkers have collapsed into lockdown. No external comms are getting in or out. They are blind, sir. Home fleet still silent, Ida added. They haven't deployed any more ships. Probably because they're too busy figuring out how they lost control of their own systems. They'll figure it out soon enough, Zane murmured. And when they do, they'll realize the worst part. Emerson looked over. Which is? Zane's voice was like a scalpel. That we didn't destroy them. That hung in the air longer than expected. It was the truth. Earth hadn't wiped out a single ship. Not fired missile. Not spilled a drop of blood. But it had exposed something infinitely worse than damage. Irrelevance. The Zathari Empire, centuries old, feared, admired, imitated, had been rendered strategically naked by 3 children and a man with a briefcase. Not conquered, not slain, rewritten. A message pinged on the primary console. Milo tapped it open, scanned it, then sat back slowly. Transmission from the Galactic Council. High priority diplomatic channel. Of course it is, Emerson said. They always show up after the storm hits. He stepped forward and accepted the feed. A hologram bloomed into the air, a shimmering mosaic of representatives from 50 worlds, arranged in circular tiers, all speaking at once. Dozens of voices overlapping in a chorus of confusion, disbelief, and accusation. Emerson waited. He knew the game. Eventually, one voice rose above the rest. A translucent blue being, bulbous-headed, robed in cascading layers of luminescent silk. High Chancellor Reline of the Oryx Commonwealth. Earth Representative. Your actions have disrupted interstellar communication, destabilized a member state empire, and violated 10 separate peace accords. Emerson smiled politely. That's quite a list. I suppose I should be impressed someone actually read the peace accords. Reline did not blink. Her species didn't. But her tone sharpened. We demand to know the purpose of this operation. The children. The psychological manipulation. The infrastructure collapse. What was your objective? Emerson didn't answer immediately. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the broken horizon where Zathari dreadnoughts still drifted, powerless and humiliated. He spoke softly but clearly. It was never a rescue. The council fell quiet. He turned back to the hologram. That's what's bothering you, isn't it? You assumed Earth sent its operatives to retrieve its children. That we mobilized a global defense initiative, hijacked strategic networks, and compromised a military fleet just to get our kids back. He paused, let it sit. That's not why we came. Ida stood. Her eyes were steel. We knew they wouldn't kill us. Zane added. We made sure they'd think we were worth studying. Fragile, emotional, predictable. Milo leaned forward. They didn't see soldiers. They saw bait. Emerson walked back to the center of the room. His voice was composed, measured, but every word carried a hidden weight. This wasn't a retrieval. This was a reminder. You forgot who we are. He tapped the console. The screen shifted to a rapid feed montage. Historical footage from Earth. Wars. Catastrophes. Rebuilding. Innovating. Adapting. Humans in trenches, under mushroom clouds, beneath tidal waves. Humans bleeding, crawling, laughing through broken teeth. Standing up. Always standing back up. You think Earth is primitive, Emerson said. You think we're volatile, disorganized. You think because we didn't build colonies on every moon, we're not playing the same game. He leaned in slightly. We are the game. Chancellor Ralene's voice returned, tinged now with something less confident. But these were children. You sent them into a war zone. No, Emerson said, voice cold now. We let them go. He gestured to the kids. You don't know what a human child is. You think of children as weak, unshaped. That's your mistake. Ours learn to run before they walk. They learn to read before their teeth come in. They question everything. And once they understand pain, they study it. Zane's voice followed. You think adults are dangerous because you've never met a child who's been hurt and told it was just a lesson. Ida stepped forward. You captured us because you thought we were easy to break. Milo added, and now your empire's broken. The Galactic Council murmured again. Some delegates looked horrified. Others, quietly impressed. One, an older Avaxi governor, simply nodded, like a long-forgotten puzzle piece had just clicked into place. Emerson continued, his voice now iron beneath velvet. You all watched. When the Zathari took our kids, none of you said a word. Not one sanction. Not one warning. You thought, let's see how Earth reacts. You wanted a spectacle. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. So he gave you one. The children stood behind him now like sentinels. Not afraid. Not ashamed. Warriors in the shape of youth. We let you believe this was about vengeance, Emerson said. That's how you sleep at night. But it wasn't revenge. It was data. We needed to know how far you'd let them go. How many of you would step in. How many would watch. How many would cheer. He paused. Then, softly, now we know. He tapped another key. Every council member's screen flickered to black. Then it showed a symbol, Earth's emblem, stark and motionless. A second later, a short message appeared beneath it. Do not touch our children. The feed ended. Emerson turned away, silence draping the shuttle like a curtain. Ida picked up her cube again, turning it in her fingers. Zane returned to the bench. Milo watched the stars, lost in thought. The mission was over, but the message would echo. Earth hadn't fired a shot. And yet, across the galaxy, military doctrines were being rewritten. Cultural historians scrambled to reevaluate human resilience. Dozens of planetary governors quietly updated their human interaction protocols. Zathari leadership had vanished from public transmissions. Civilian dissent within their empire was surging. Border outposts blinked offline not from attack, but from mass resignations. Even their war hymns sounded hollow now. In one single, surgically executed operation, Earth had done what no species had ever accomplished. It had reprogrammed fear. Back in the shuttle, the hum of the engine grew louder as Milo adjusted course. Emerson walked back to his chair and sat down slowly, his body finally catching up with the burden of the day. He looked at the children. They looked back. Zane spoke first. Was this how it was always going to end? No, Emerson said. It was how it had to. Ida looked down. They won't forget this. Good, Emerson said. They shouldn't. Milo chuckled, but it was dry. Still think it's weird that the most powerful message in the galaxy was sent by a 9-year-old using a spoon and a tooth implant. Emerson smiled faintly. Some wars are won with missiles, others with mirrors. Zane's eyes narrowed. So what now? Emerson looked toward the void, toward Earth, still distant, still watching. Now we go home. And, after a moment, let them sit with it. Let them wonder if every child they meet might be another mirror. The shuttle turned toward the stars, and the galaxy, for the first time in 1,000 years, held its breath.